Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Alrighty, ladies and gents, this is a free flow intro coming at you live. I am super excited for this episode. This is a amalgamation of many of my friends and I interviewing our mutual friend Brandon Joe Williams. Now, Brandon Joe Williams goes by the name One Stupid Fuck. He is absolutely incredible, a wealth of information, and I was very called to share this episode with each of you. So this is me, Brandon Thomas. We also have the Legitbat guys. We have Heath on here. We have a couple other people as well, and we are all talking to Brandon about his line of work. Now, Brandon's line of work is very interesting. He's going to explain it much better than I do, but this episode is kind of diving right into the deep end. So for some of you that might be like, whoa, what are they talking about? Make sure to go over to onestupidfuck.com, download Brandon's free course, the Contract Killer course. And what he's basically diving into is the true nature of the U.S. And this isn't just only applicable to the U.S. It's just that, again, like he's obviously in the U.S., so he's focusing on the U.S., but he's talking about things like how to legally get out of paying taxes and a lot of the rules of the 1%, right? And a lot of the things that unless you read dictionaries and, the FDCPA, all of the UCC, all of these different, law type books and things like that, you'd never know. So give it a listen. Check it out. It's my, intention to always give you guys all of the things that I believe can free you and can red pill you. I have been diving into this stuff a lot. You can definitely expect to hear Brandon back on the show one-on-one. I'm going to have him do like a very keep it simple, silly approach to this. But this is a great deep dive right into the deep end. So anyway, guys, hope you have the best day ever. Enjoy this episode, and I will see you on the other side. Much love, everybody. Oh, and also, the other thing I was going to say too is this is going to be part 2 out of parts 1 through 3. So to access parts 1 and 3, dive down to the show notes, and you will see that on Brandon's podcast and also some of the other podcasts, you'll be able to find the other parts. So this is going to give you great ability to connect with some of my favorite people in the world who listen to their podcasts, etc. And so make sure you check those out for the full episode. And as always, love you guys and talk to you soon. Peace.
Dude, just have your own shit, create your own everything. Don't depend on them for anything. And learn how to make sure that you can stand up against them and tell them to fuck right off and mean it. And it works because you have that power. That's your power. All of this shit only happens because we consent to it. It's crazy when you figure out that it all happens because you consent. And if you stop them right at that thing they call the quote unquote name, wait a minute, what do you mean by you? And you require them to define their terms. I envision a world where one day we have a contract where every single word would be linked directly to a definition for what's, the meaning used in play at that time. And to me, I see it as that's what's required before we start talking about systematizing things like what the legal world or the private legal society, as they actually are, claim to exist in that form.
Well, they actually have that. I mean, the definition section is the first section of any body of law. It's just that no one ever pays any attention to it. I mean, technically speaking, that is how it is. It's how it's been for a long time. And it's just like nobody focuses on the definitions. Just like you said, nobody forces the definitions and focuses on the definitions. Because when you focus on the definitions, just like you said, I mean, that's literally everything.
That's it. I mean, why do they get to use their own private language though and pretend it's English? Why can't they be real about that and say, hey, this is a different language. We're not speaking English here. None of these words mean what you think they mean. They can't, because this whole legalese structure is designed to willfully deceive an English speaking population into thinking that they're actually talking the same language, which they're not. And it's a really fucked up scenario. I think that's the fundamental problem with our existence today, and that we deserve a valid contract. Like a full disclosure of terms and a meeting.
Definitely.
An agreed upon course of action.
Yeah.
An auditable schedule, conflict resolution modalities all built into it. And the fact that we currently are suffering from the trepidation or of not having a valid contract is the reality that I think that needs to change. And my intention is to actually bring about a valid contract and have it get built into a narrative so that we can kind of see what a valid contract could look like if we had it. But it's certainly, I don't feel that the state as it currently exists or quote unquote government at any time has ever been able to actually produce a valid contract, because there's generally no meeting of the minds. I get that. Yeah, they put definitions in their Black's Law dictionary, but they're attempting to pass off their own language as English, right? To the layman, to the non-initiated, somebody that's actually looking like getting subject to their proceedings without even knowing what it is and why they're there.
Well, one thing I will say on this that may be considered a little combative, but I hope it's not, is that I do have to say that when you really take a lot of time to look in Black's Law and you actually look at all these definitions for hundreds of years that they've spent a lot of time trying to figure out, it's actually incredible. Even the word payment. I remember I looked up the word payment. I look up everything because I'm just like, I assume that I'm just a complete idiot all the time. Okay. And I looked at the word payment and it said basically the completion or handling or discharging of an obligation. And I was like, because we're so like, I actually, if I'm looking at anything, even like a document or a contract or this or that, or even like a book, like a novel, like I look up all my words. I start in Black's Law just to check and see if it's there. And for me, it's often very mind-blowing and very life-changing what I find in that book. It's almost so far beyond law or legal for me that maybe it's because we are so deep in the occult world because of how bad things have gotten that we basically live in an occult world. That could totally be.
And that's my position. I mean, if we take a look at why can't they tell me what the nature and cause of the proceedings are? Why can't they tell me? Isn't that a valid question?
Oh, totally.
It's actually the only valid question if you ever find yourself in any kind of proceedings ever. But why can't they say so? Well, it's because of what's really happening there. They can't tell you that it's actually an admiralty proceeding, a military tribunal being conducted.
It's a commercial proceeding. Yeah.
Yeah. Admiralty, but it's military. Ultimately, it's the military conducting a tribunal on a civilian population.
Yeah.
Which is a violation of every international wartime law in the history of international wartime law. You don't just enslave a population with your military after it's conquered, right? Like that's against all human rights. That's slavery in anybody's book. Like we've got to realize that that's fucking slavery. And I consider myself an abolitionist, right? Like that's what I'm here for, is to help man abolish slavery from this world. I know the actual law, right? The real law is free will choice, period. That's the law. That's the real law. You have free will choice. The first protector of the law is freely given consent, right? You give consent for whatever it is you choose to do. And the first defender of the law the first crime against the law is theft of consent. You violate somebody's consent, right?
It's rape. I call it rape.
You murder, you rape, you assault, you trespass, you coerce, you do anything of that nature. That is where you're violating consent. You kidnap, anything of that kind.
Well, I consider a lot of what we see in the world contractually to be rape. It is, in my opinion, it's the same definition. It is rape. They're forcing themselves on you without you knowing the terms and conditions of whatever it is of anything, and they'll never explain it to you. I personally consider that rape.
That is. I mean, that's exactly what happened with this whole needle rape. I called it for the entire time. That's what it was. They weren't giving you any sort of disclosure of terms about what it was offering. I mean, they get to wave their badge around and they think of it as a license to rape, a license to murder, a license to assault, a license to kidnap, when it's fucking not. No costume has ever given man the right to do any of those things, period. End of story. Full stop.
Yeah, no, they just roofied everybody and stuck it right in. I love it.
Now the only thing I have to say on this is while all of that is 1,000 billion% true, as I continued to study farther and farther and farther, I started to have sort of like a complete shift in mentality. And the shift of mentality that I had was, you guys want to have a commercial transaction between me and the principal, and I'm the agent on behalf of the principal, which is the all caps name, the corporation, the whatever, right? You guys want to create a security. That's what they want. They want it so fucking bad. Like they like their dick's just hard all day long to create securities on behalf of the principal. Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm the only one who can sign those securities into effect as the surety on behalf of the principal, the all caps name. It's like, all right, you guys have this hard fucking cock to create these securities, and it's like a sexual experience for you. Fuck it. I'll sign the motherfucking things. You guys just give me some of the money, and you guys can take some of the money, and we can all go home happy. I'll sign all the fucking bonds that you want. You want a commercial activity? Put it on the table. I'll sign it right now. As long as I get 50%, I have a fiduciary obligation to the principal, so I can't just sign something and not get paid. I mean, think about it. That's trust fraud. So
at what point are we saying that, okay, you get your half and then they go with their half and commit mass murder and genocide with it? I mean, at what point do we say that's wrong? When we're not going to agree to play their stupid game anymore. We understand what money is. We can actually create the foundations of a new system for money, and we don't need a third party intermediary, some mafioso set of narcissists, fucking psychopaths, parasites scribbling all these different rules. I really see this as, we have to completely reset the contract, our quote unquote social contract, down to first principles, and then rebuild from there. We can no longer keep slavery afloat in this world, because think about all the people that are just completely enslaved into believing that this piece of paper they're holding and them are the same thing. So they've just accepted that as a boundary condition for the rest of their life. Like, that is fucked, to live a life where that's all you can experience because you didn't never ask the questions. You didn't have the intellect. Like, the default contractual position for man in this world cannot be slavery. All right. Yeah. It just can't. It can't. That's fucked up in every sense of the word. And just for me, I'm standing up against it. I recognize fully that this is a war. And the way I participate in it is through memes, is through the mind. It's a mind war. It's all in the mind. It's all mind battlefield. And to be able to recognize that and say, and even to identify your enemy makes them disappear. If you can, it's really important for us to be able to recognize that.
And I appreciate your memes, dude. I steal so many of them. You have no idea.
I'm smashing them, dude. I spend a lot of time procuring memes because I feel it's the closest way to spread the right idea with a simple meme. As soon as you see the meme, you can't unsee the meme. It's like, oh man.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, look, what my movement is let's take advantage of the system that's here right now, and let's just fuck the system while it's here and make as much money as we can. I mean, look, I have marketing campaigns, paid marketing campaigns. If I went into a courtroom right now, I would sign the bond on behalf of the principal. I'd get half the money and it would go straight into a marketing campaign. And I'll tell you right now, they've been working on this prison system for 140 years or more. I've been working on my paid ads for a little over a year. I'll tell you what, you give me $40,000, you give them $40,000, my shit's going to go 150 times what their shit's going to go. But I'll tell you right now, a drop of fucking truth on this subject is worth, 25 years of bullshit. honestly. Because I mean, it's so fast how fast this movement is moving. It's so fast how fast people are. I mean, it takes 14 weeks to get a fucking passport right now.
Well, and that's why I think our best move is just to say, hey, fuck it. None of us speak legal anymore. We're all speaking English here.
This I like. This Andrew, dude. Who brought Andrew, by the way?
It was Joe.
Joe, dude, thank you. Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
Will you tell everybody again where they can find you, please?
Well, the Grateful Disobedient is what it's the basics of the work, but I'm going to be getting a lot more into the specifics of, natural law and how to exist in this world based on first principles with my next work. We kind of laid the foundation. Learning more about the production end of it, but if we just figured out that legalese is as a whole, we can't really agree to that anymore. We cannot at all. We got to actually know what those terms, we can actually have to be speaking English in order for these contracts to be valid. Wouldn't it be great if we could just have a revamp of all contracts to a language that we fully like plain English, common speech, so a layman can be like, hey, yeah, this is what I agree to. There's a meeting of the minds here. Not a bunch of lawyer mumbo jumbo that people just scan through and don't even think about reading ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah. I knew that. Like, I've always known, like, I want to make money. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to take advantage of the system, blah, blah. But I always knew that in the back of my head, what's going to happen is a whole bunch of people are going to come in and make a whole fuckload of money from the system. And they're all going to come in and sign the bonds and get the money. And then it's like, there's going to be this furor, this insane furor of like, now everyone's rushing in, trying to make money, and then you create this like gigantic funnel of people and interest and awareness of the problem of the subject. And when enough people learned about how fucked up the system was, I knew there was going to be a point of critical mass as that went up, where people were just like, fuck all this. We don't want to play this fucking game at all. And then what you have is a completely natural separation of public and private. Well, where people just say, fuck this. And they just go into the private.
This is why I wanted to invite Andrew on, is because I knew he was doing kind of the same thing, but from a slightly different perspective. And I think you two together are the mighty Morphin Power Rangers, because if you guys can combine your ideas, because it's slightly different, but it's the same thing. It's the same idea. So yeah.
No, it definitely is, for sure.
Yeah, no, all of this is blowing minds and perfect. I mean, I knew this would be amazing, and that's why I pulled the sound effect just for you guys. So enjoy that. It's wild and amazing. And Brandon, to what you said too about it being like a drop in the bucket is amplifying so much further, like your bang for buck as you described it, which I love that. It's spiritually quantifiable. Actually, people have talked about that one awake person, not woke, awake, impacts 75,000 NPCs, as we affectionately call them. And so it sort of has this absolute ripple effect in a really dramatic, energetic way, because you have the intent behind it of natural and real law, universal law. So it's really interesting to take these things, to pick them down. And dude, Andrew, I'm a big fan already, man. We're going to talk, buddy. We have a lot to talk about. You and I align in many ways. We have a publishing house. We have a lot to talk about.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to see where it goes.
So this, I am curious. I wanted to ask real quick back to the car thing, and then we can move on. Just one quick point. In Texas, there is a law, God bless Texas, that if somebody is stealing your car or something out of your car, even if it's on a public street, out in front of a house, in an apartment, anything like that, you can shoot that person. You can shoot him dead. Now, the thing about that is it dates back to a law that they never changed about it being your mode of transportation, about stealing your horse. So this has to do with your right to travel and your ability to commerce, to your ability to freedom in the best means available to you. And so if that's in jeopardy, you do have some sort of right there. So there's something about your ability to travel freely without even needing to be fucked with this in any way. And I don't know if this is a state by state thing. This is a Texas law specifically about this, dating back to your ability to travel. And so it being tied to horses and all that kind of thing. Is there anything to that in there, to where there's something about your vehicle being like, when you're in it, you're like in a spaceship, you're on your own little sovereign soil?
Your carriage on the trails.
Yeah.
Just because they paved over your trails doesn't make it like not your trail anymore.
Yeah. That's what drunk people should say going over parks. Man, the Montreux used to be here. You guys just fucking put a park here, man.
There's two different worlds. There's the world of the public, which is the the world of the private, I should say, which would be the trails. And then there's the world of the public, which, as per the public, what happens is that when you buy a car for the first time, the way it actually works, and you can look all this up and you can see how it works. It's really fascinating. There's actually a birth certificate for your vehicle. It's called a manufacturer statement of origin or a manufacturer certificate of origin, depending on if it's domestic or foreign. This original document, which is on bond paper, it has the weight of the vehicle, the type of vehicle, the manufacturer location. It's literally the birth certificate of the vehicle. When you're sitting and you're buying a vehicle with cash out the gate, they say, would you like us to handle license and registration for you, Mr. Williams, for $230? If you say yes, what they do is they send that birth certificate of the vehicle, which is the superior title to the vehicle, to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, which motor vehicle literally means commercial vehicle used on the highways for commercial purposes. And they even have a special definition for the term used for commercial purposes. That's how specific they are on this, which I can read you guys the definitions, but it's pretty self-explanatory. And basically used for commercial purposes literally means that you're being paid to transport someone else or someone else's goods for money. That's how specific they are. They're so specific on what the definition is. So you're basically, what happens is that you're basically donating your car to the Department of Motor Vehicles in order to operate in the commercial world. And in exchange, they give you a certificate of title. The word certificate basically means like a duplicate or like a subcategory level type of thing. Like it's almost like a trust, where it's like they're the trustee, you're the beneficiary. You don't really own the vehicle anymore at that point, right?
But for it to be commerce, though, legitimate commerce, it has to be voluntary, right? There has to have full disclosure of terms. There has to be.
That's why it gets crazier, because very, very recently I found the exact area in the United States Code that actually defines what registration is, because you have that whole thing, which is the plates and the donating of the superior title. And then you have all this stuff. And then on top of that, you have registration, which is found in 34 USC 12611. And when I found this, I almost shit my pants because I couldn't believe what this said. So what this is, it's registration, quote unquote, is actually called the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. And you can actually look that up in the United States Code. And it literally says inside the code, the owner of a motor vehicle may voluntarily sign a consent form with a participating state or locality in which the motor vehicle owner, and then it says, agrees to display program decals or devices on the owner's vehicle. And this is the part that just totally fucked my mind, right? Permit law enforcement officials in any state to stop the motor vehicle and take reasonable steps to determine whether the vehicle is being operated by or with the permission of the owner if the vehicle is being operated under the specific conditions. And then it literally basically says that you're waiving your right. You're allowing them to stop you. You're having to display program details, which is your little registration sticker that often is holographic. Okay, that's what they're talking about, right? And literally it says in here, voluntary consent form, which is subsection C. It says the voluntary consent form used to enroll in the program shall clearly state that participation in the program is voluntary. clearly explain that participation in the program means that if the participating vehicle is being operated under specific conditions, law enforcement officials may stop the vehicle and take reasonable steps to determine whether it is being operated by or with the consent of the owner, even if the law enforcement officials have no other basis for believing that the vehicle is being operated unlawfully. So they're literally saying, even if you're not breaking the law in any way, shape, or form, you are allowing them, waiving all of your Fifth Amendment rights, stating that they have the right to pull you over and verify that you have the right to be operating that vehicle underneath the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program. And that's what vehicle registration actually is. So you have
that's because we're occupied militarily. That's a military occupying force. That is. So
you have two different things. You have the fact that you donated your car to the state to be operated in a commercial world. And then you have on top of that, you have this other contract, which is called registration, but it's actually called the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Program, right? So in the public, the way that they look at it is you have these two horrific contracts. One, you've already signed away all your rights and they can pull you over for any reason to determine if you're the person who should be driving the vehicle, whatever. And the other one is that the state actually holds superior title to the automobile, right? And that's why you have person jurisdiction and you have subject matter jurisdiction. So person jurisdiction is, do they have jurisdiction over you as a living being? And then you have subject matter jurisdiction, which is the vehicle in question, right? So in the private, you would have these things like these trails and the horses and stuff like that. Now the problem, the situation is in Texas, the private side of law has more umph and more respect and more care and more awareness. Somewhere in California, the public side has a lot more of the awareness and the focus, right? So the thing is that when you're in Texas, yes, the law may state that on the private side, because the fact that in Texas, they don't really care as much about the public side, but you go into a state like California, and now it's the polar opposite, right? But in the state of California, apparently, in the state of California, you get rid of your certificate of title. You get your original manufacturer certificate of origin. You get rid of your registration. You get a private motor carrier DOT number. And now it's the same idea. You're operating within their idea of what's more important, which is the public. And in Texas, you're operating within their idea of what's more important, which is the private. But in my opinion, the way to truly become like a micronation is you need to understand both sides of the equation. You need to understand the public side and you need to understand the private side. And you need to understand how you're interacting and operating between both avenues, because then it doesn't matter which of the 50 states that you're in. If they're public, no problem. I got all the fucking shit worked out for that. If they're private, no problem. I've got all this shit worked out for that as well. But on the private, it's going to be very, very state specific. Very, very state specific on the private.
I prefer to operate privately as often as possible and avoid public like the plague, just frankly, because to me, that's whenever I think of public, I think of war machine violence, because that's government. That's ultimately what it is here. Let's not mince words. And I mean, we're basically paying. So, yeah. But I mean, I get what you're saying. It's a great idea to understand the machinations of the public and how it works. But my time, I feel, is just so called towards figuring out an alternative narrative for mankind to operate in this world on, based on first principles first. Then we build complexity on top of that to create an economy and do all these things with money, quote unquote, and all these other things. If we're not, but we've lost track of first principles in this existing construct entirely. I mean, so that's the way. No,
I agree with you entirely. I just the only difference is just, in the public, because we operate on a world of promissory notes, Federal Reserve notes. I don't like the fact that we operate within Federal Reserve notes. In the private, you'd have gold and silver coins, which obviously is much, much better. But the problem is that you can't go around and exchange gold and silver coins very readily, which should change. Yes. But in the public, when you learn how securities and promissory notes actually work, you can actually start to manufacture them, which is where we're at right now. And the thing
Which is what everybody does anyway, right? That's basically all.
Yeah. So every time you use a credit card, you're manufacturing a security, right? So in the public, as of right now, circa this year, circa 2023, right now, where we sit right now, we're in a world that's like 95% public, right? So the thing is that you can use the public to generate infinite promissory notes in order to fund marketing campaigns that you can use to educate people about why they should shift into the private, right? So that's kind of how my mind works. My mind works is that
I would say speak out against the war machine, because I mean, each one of us figuring out how to do it in the private is one thing, but the goal is to ultimately stop mass death from happening. Like, to me, that's something that's very important karmically for all of us right now, is to figure out how do we stop these endless wars and just useless loss of life at the hands of an industrial complex that makes its profiteering off of that very thing. Like, we've got to stand up and get rid of the corporation as an entirety, in my opinion. And I instead of have a corporation, have a collaboration, right? Where we're collaborating in a competitive environment to solve bigger problems. And it's all voluntary. It's all skills-based, merit-based. And that's how we build an economy. And that's how we build something that, I mean, we've got to fundamentally shift and repeat and completely write different narratives to actually win this thing, because it's all narratives every step of the way up, every step of the way down. I mean, legalese as a language is entirely a narrative. Yeah, they're spinning it with their own word magic, and because of that, they're weaving these narratives of why you just go along consenting with things when you really don't have to. You at any given moment can stand up and say no, and how many moments are in a second?
You know, and Andrew, you're doing it here. You're doing exactly what the actual mission of this is, which is to be a lighthouse. So goddamn so fucking attractive that it's silly to say, well, that's ridiculous, and I could not ever see that being appealing for me and my family. We have a whole huge movement. I can't wait to introduce you to the Luminous Education family group that we have going. So there's so many projects out here, brother, that are really embracing the ideas and are ready for you, Andrew, to be here with us. And it's got nothing to do with battling anything. It's more about, it's all, like you said, a mind game. So we start.
It's creation.
Exactly. So we start here and use that, what we would rather not see as, like in the Seth works, as an alchemization tool to then be able to use it as a creativity option of experience for us in the future, which is what we're doing. That's what this conversation is. And we're crushing it at that. And so this is the beauty about bringing these ideas together, because this is no more of the Q Bolshevik revolution type, somebody else is going to come save us. We're doing it right here. Like, this is us reading through this stuff to be the lighthouse for those folks. And that's, I feel, the way to go about this, because we're not looking forward to being gardeners in a war. We're warriors in a garden. And that's exactly what I'd consider Heath, for sure. I've got your running mate right there, Andrew, by the way. But that's what this is. It's peaceful. Like, it's Brandon, I love what you said on the show, man. I quote this all the time now. It's 1776 without the bodies. And so
all the dead bodies.
Yeah. To withdraw from the energy from the system, but this is an actionable map. And I feel this is one of the biggest alchemizational tools that we have here, is this conversation, these awarenesses, because it's all right here. The Laurel Erica, the episode that just came out on the show, shout out, love that woman. Her definition of an epiphany is a sudden recognition of the obvious. And it seems like what we're talking about here is right out in front of your face, because it has to be, right? This whole idea of, God, what do they call that? Not predictive programming. The thing where they have to put it out in front of you and tell you what it is.
You call that predictive programming.
Revelation of the method. It's where they have everything laid out to where you can find it, but you just have to look for it. And so, Andrew, your whole thing of abstaining from even a conversation about, even to where you could make a wrong turn in the maze of legalese, is just abstaining from it. Like, hey, dude, I was called that. I mean, that thing that you said, that 10 minutes, whatever you did, I'm going to be grabbing that as an audio sample and just listening to it and just really studying the way that you articulated that, because it's perfect. It needs nothing else, and it abstains.
Well, and let me explain that a little bit more. It works because you know your law, you know your language, and you know your religion. You know the law is consent, right? You know your language is English. It's not this fucking legalese. And if you know the law is consent, then you certainly know all their bullshit is What?
You could even ask him live, what's the definition of consent? I mean, that would just blow the whole fucking place apart.
I asked him, what does a name mean to you? Like what? I don't speak legal. I don't understand any of it. Like, and I just kept making a mockery. Dude, you got to really make a mockery out of these guys.